Welcome to Sex, Psychics, and Psychedelics. We're exploring inner liberation, imagination, and heartfelt joy. The point really is that we are the medicine, and there are a million ways to get to this realization, but let's realize it while we're here, shall we? Charles Wininger is a licensed psychotherapist and a mental health counselor specializing in relationships and communication skills. He's recognized as the Love Doctor by the New York Times and Newsday. He's been teaching couples and individuals in Manhattan and Brooklyn for 30 years. He sits on the board of advisees of the Psychedelics Education and Continuing Care Program at the Center for Optimal Living in New York, and he now lives in Brooklyn with his wife. I'm so happy to have him here today to talk about attaining next level relationship with MDMA. Charley, welcome to Sex, Psychics, and Psychedelics. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Jane. It's great to be here.
I just finished reading your book, listening to Ecstasy, about your relationship with MDMA, and it does feel in a way like a love story, both to your partner and to MDMA itself, and to my ears, really to the work of being a therapist in its broadest and deepest and most human form. But it's certainly not a traditional book by a therapist. Let's
It will
hear.
be.
It will be. It's a progressive book by a therapist.
That's right.
Um, Tell me just a little about before we dive into ecstasy, tell me a little about your practice
I'd rather
as a
just dive into
therapist.
ecstasy.
I know you would.
Um,
I know, but we're just going to ground the listener so that they know we're not, completely
okay.
nuts.
Okay.
Just tell me something about your practice,
Sure.
as a
Sure.
therapist.
Okay. Well, I've been a practicing psychotherapist for the past 35 years here in New York, licensed mental health counselor, um, and I've been a practicing psychonaut, one who uses psychedelic substances for the past 50 years. Actually, a little longer than that.
Hmm.
But in my practice, I don't use psychedelics in my practice, but I do help people prepare for and integrate those type of experiences. And of course, I'm the author of, like you said, of this book, Listening to Ecstasy: The Transformative Power of MDMA, and and that has brought a lot of people to my practice who like to use or are curious about these substances. But the progression of my practice has been not only to help people who use these substances, but also I'm focused more and more these days on couples and doing a lot of couples
Mm.
therapy because I think we heal best in relationship.
I want to hear more about that. Now, you were called the Love Doctor by the New York Times. Why did they give you
In,
that beautiful title? I'm
indeed.
jealous. I want the title. Can you share it?
No, Shelley can. You have to be in a partnership with me to be able
Oh,
to share
all right. Okay. Shelley wins. Shelley wins.
That's right.
Um, yeah, no, what was that Love Doctor title about?
Well, that was because when that's actually how I met my current wife, my second
Mm.
wife, back in 2000, and I had been single for 8 years and thrown back or threw myself back into the single world after being married to my first wife and found that it was a wilderness out there for single people and I needed to start teaching myself wilderness skills. So after a while I started teaching others what I was learning myself and started giving lectures around town on the best places to meet somebody and what to do when you arrive at those places and how to assess somebody and how to determine when to have sex and how fast or slow to move in a relationship and all these things. And I gave these lectures around town, and then somebody came, and a journalist came and covered me.
So this
And
was quite a ballsy thing to be doing, Charlie, because you didn't actually know what you were doing, really, did you? Because you were single and you were in the wilderness and you were basically being an anthropologist, right? You were studying and teaching as you went.
Yes, but I was an anthropologist is often not studying themselves and not in the same world or practicing in that same world. They're observing that world, and I was doing both. I was
You were
I
in the
was
trenches.
I was in the trenches, is right, and I was learning the hard way, and I was telling people, look, a smart person learns from their mistakes, but a wise person learns from other people's mistakes. So be wise, learn from my mistakes, because I've made every mistake in the book when it came to dating, and I'm here to teach you what I did wrong so you can do it right.
Well, I kind of want to know what you did right because I know that you've been in a wonderful relationship for how many years now?
And this July will be 25 years.
So 25 years of a stellar relationship, and actually I met you because I met your wife first, and I could see that she was I had a night out with her in New York very recently, and had
Yes.
a terrific time, and I was like, this woman knows what's up. I want what she's having. This is good shit. And yeah, so that really, she led me to you and reading the book, and I'm fascinated by couples that work. I feel like with I don't know. I'll talk from the I position to be safe here, but I feel like I was exposed to so many complex couples and difficult couples, and some would maybe even say toxic couples, that those vibrations, those tonations seemed very, very familiar. And I started to wonder where are the good vibrations in terms of couples who are really symbiotic, who are really compatible, who are really harmonious, and started to dream of, a radio station where you would just listen to people who are in good relationships,
Mm-hmm.
who are experiencing satisfaction, who aren't in constant turmoil and complexity. And I've been looking around and there aren't that many. And interestingly, I have found a few in the psychedelic world. So I'm like,
Uh-huh.
okay, something's here, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe,
But
yes.
maybe. I don't know. But you look, you either got lucky or you're wise or both. But let's try and
Well,
get into your wisdom.
yeah, the wisdom, if any wisdom is here, it's from hard-earned experience. And one of the things I was teaching is how to assess somebody. I believe we all have our patterns. We tend to be attracted to the same person with a different face throughout our lives. Somebody, oh, this person was, you know, uh, didn't watch the same TV shows as me and didn't want kids, so I know I don't want that. So I'm going to look for somebody who watches the shows I watch and wants kids. But it turns out that on a deeper level, that second person is just as wrong as
Hmm.
that first person was because it's really a pattern. And we have this unconscious radar that we pick up a ton of information about somebody within 30, 40, 50 seconds of meeting them. And it all flies in under the radar. It's subconscious. And the kind of information we get is the information that tells us whether this person, this Harville Hendrix stuff, if you know his
Yeah, I
work,
know who he is. Yeah.
it is going to be the person who's going to wound us the same old familiar way
Mm-hmm.
that a caretaker did long ago, with the hopes of healing us this time. And but we pick up that information right off the bat. So I I was I wouldn't say harmed, but wounded by my mother years ago, and there's a lot to that story. And I tended to pick women who reminded me of her one way or another through the major relationships in my life through my first marriage. And after my first marriage, when I was divorcing, I realized, oh, I just like a prayer, I said, please just teach me whatever I have to learn so I don't have to go through this again.
Yeah.
And what I had to learn was how to pick up those signals, how to understand what was flying in under the radar, how to teach myself what my pattern is, and get really literate in my pattern. So it got to the point where I could see that type of woman coming a mile away. And I would notice my attraction, but then I would have a choice. Do I go down this road again or do I try something else this time? So when I met Shelley in 2000 after giving a lecture like this, and we started dating, she was so much not my pattern that it threw me for a loop because I was having feelings for this. I was attracted to her, but okay, I was attracted to her. That's great. Um, Sex is very important to me. Affection is very important to me. We had that in ACEs. Okay, but that's not enough. And I realized that unlike the other women that I had dated or married in my life, Shelley was not an intellectual. She was intelligent, but not an intellectual. She was not a therapist. She was not adept at psychotherapy as a patient. She couldn't discuss politics with me. All these things that all these other women could do very well. All Shelley was doing was making me happy. And it was throwing me for a loop because I said, okay, I know I like her, and she's making me happy, but this can't be the one because, like, all these other things aren't happening. And it's not.
Because relationships aren't about happiness.
That's right. Relationships are
Yeah.
about hardship and
Yeah.
struggle and drama
Yeah. Yeah.
and fights late into the night.
I remember you
That's
saying
what
in
I
the
thought.
book, you said something about relationships being encoded in your mind as about these sort of steep learning curves. I really resonated with that. I was like, oh, yes. We are like, well,
Yes.
I'm learning so much.
Yes.
I think I am.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And you can learn like that for the rest of your life, but
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily have to lead to change.
Yeah.
So one day what happened was I had this intuitive hunch, which said to me, just get a photo of her. And this was after dating her for almost a year. I don't know, 6 or 9 months, I forget. And I didn't know. Like a lot of deeply intuitive hunches, at first I rejected it because it didn't make sense. Why should I get a photo of her? I see her twice a week. Um, we have these lovely dates. But it kept coming. So I said, Shelley, do you have a photo of you? And she said, yeah. And next time she brought a photo, and I put it on my mirror in the living room in my apartment. That a mirror that I passed going from my living room into another room. And a week later, when she wasn't there, I pass the mirror with this photo on it. Excuse me if I, so many years later, it still makes me emotional. I pass it and I look at the photo and then I look at myself in the mirror and I look at the photo. I look at myself again and say, no. And then look at the photo and I look at myself and say, to myself, I say, you're in love with her. And I said, it can't be. They said, you are. And I realized it was true.
Okay, I want to slow down with this moment, Charlie, because it's so beautiful that there's so much emotion still here. Can we go into it for a second? I'm
It was
just
an
gonna.
epiphany. It was one of
No, I
those.
don't want you to describe it. I want you to tell me what is there now. What is the feeling?
It's a warm, glowing feeling in my heart, in my chest. That's what it is. And a feeling of well-being. And at that moment, it was a feeling of like a eureka moment, like excitement and relief at the same time.
Yes, because there's a sort of like there's a release of as I feel that moment. There's a release of sadness.
Yeah.
There's
Yes,
a release of
exactly.
loneliness.
Yes. Yeah. She was not just this wonderful person who I was having great fun with and joyful time with, and was turning into a fabulous playmate, in and out of bed. but was also like the solution to the journey, the romantic journey I'd been on all my life up to that point.
Well, absolutely. And isn't it a spiritual journey too?
Yes.
Moving out of loneliness.
Yes. Moving out of loneliness, moving out of the definition of oneself as
Yeah.
single,
Yeah. Yeah.
or the definition of oneself as I'm not really good at relationships,
God.
or they always end, or they're always full of drama and suffering, and they always end.
I know
Yeah,
because just
a
on
lot
that,
to let go of.
there's a lot to let go of. And it is a big ride, isn't it? When you go from, I've had this version a few times where it starts out and you think, I can't believe I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed. How could I be so wonderful as to attract such a wonderful other? Cut to, how could I be such an idiot to do this again?
I know, I know. We are
What a
always,
ride! What a
what a
ride for the
ride.
ego, for the mind, for the soul, for the heart. I mean, it's a tangle. It's a
It
tangle.
is.
It's a tangle until it isn't. And that's what
Yeah.
I love about reading your book and getting this vibration is like, yeah, there are a shitload of tangles out there, but it's not all tangles.
No, no. This untangled it. That moment untangled it, um, and so then I, was able to finally realize what was going on. My my heart knew right away, but it took a long time, 6 to 9 months for my head to catch up.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. And so at what point did MDMA enter the picture for you guys as a relationship enhancer, a tool, connection?
Well, I had given up on MDMA at that point. I was a psychonaut, I met her in 2000, and through the 90s, I did MDMA a couple of times. I didn't know anything about the protocols. I didn't know how to do it right. I did it wrong. I mixed it. I had it at the end of a night of drinking once. I had I had made various common mistakes, and I'd given up on it. I said, "This is like what I think it was a substance without substance." I said, um, and so I said, "This is it just doesn't work for me." But Shelley was out of a, a first marriage herself to a very conservative, domineering type of guy who would look at her askance if she had more than a drink of wine, more than a glass. So she was kind of repressed in that marriage, one reason why she left. And she wanted to spread her wings. And when she found out about my history, as like I was a hippie back in the day and kind of remained that way in many ways. And she said, "Yeah, I want to do a lot of things." And she told me about the things she wanted to do and the places she wanted to go. And one thing she wanted to do was try ecstasy because her kid had told her about it and said, "You got to try this, Mom." So she wanted to try it. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to do it with you, but if you want to do it, I'll make sure I get it and I'll learn about it and I make sure it's tested and pure and weigh it to the milligram and taught myself the protocols. So by the time I was ready to give it to her for the first time, I thought, all right, what the hell? I'll try it also. I'll try, give it one more chance myself. And that was the beginning of our journey. This was back in 2001, I believe. And to watch her come up on MDMA, watch her as she was climbing and reaching the plateau. She was in a very stressful job. She had been a critical care nurse working the ER and then the post-op life and death situations every day.
Yeah.
Watching the stress of daily work just wash over her face, just wash away, to melt away, and became even more beautiful to me than she had been, and realized that. And she started just touching herself, stroking her arms, stroking her face. As you may know, MDMA is not a sexual drug so much as a sensual drug.
Mm.
Um, wanted to stroke my face and arms. I said, no, no, I'm okay. And she said, okay, well, you're not ready for that. Okay. And she was perfectly happy to just keep exploring this.
You
But
didn't want to
that,
be touched on MDMA?
not yet, not at that moment. Later on, I did.
Because you felt she was in her own experience and you
I
wanted to
wanted,
honor
yeah,
that. Yeah.
at that moment, I didn't want to be touched. It was
Yeah.
that simple. She was exploring in her way. I was
Yeah.
exploring this new experience in my way because it was new for me to do it in the right way.
Mm.
The psychedelics, these are very serious, powerful compounds, and you have to learn how to do it right or don't do it at all. So I was doing it the right way for the first time, and because I felt responsible for her experience, and that first time was like a revelation to us both, and this soon became what they call her drug of choice. She's tried many things since, LSD and psilocybin mushrooms and ayahuasca, and still uses marijuana, but MDMA is definitely her drug of choice and sort of become mine too. And since that time, what's that, like 23 years ago, we've done MDMA together about 90 times.
Wow.
But if you divide it into the number of years, you see like we're doing it 4, 5, 6 times a year. It's not
Hmm.
that often. I mean, it's not
So every
every
couple of months,
every
basically.
every
Yeah.
2 or 3 months, basically.
Yeah.
That's part of the protocol, especially at our age. We're in our
Hmm.
70s.
Hmm. Yeah.
So we have to really be careful and not overdo it. Because if we overdo it, it'll lose its magic. And its magic is so wonderful that we don't want, we'd rather do it more rarely and get more out of it.
Absolutely. And in terms of your relationship, I mean, I know it's hard to put into a nutshell, but we have to start somewhere. What has MDMA given you? How has it helped your relationship?
It has, I mean, we had an unusually good relationship from the get-go. I mean,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
just unusually compatible. Um, but it added, and it has cumulative effects over time if you keep doing it. At least that's what I have found. It added a whole other layer of joy and depth of connection. It's one thing to be in love with somebody, share their values, be compatible with them. But it's another thing to every now and then share a day with them where you're spending it dedicated to being together and fine tuning your bodies exquisitely tuned to the same chemical frequency together,
Mm.
hearts beating in tandem. And it's like what's I'm blocking on the word, the type of it's like tantra on steroids. Okay, it's like so we're being so it's such a feeling of unity with somebody.
Yeah.
It deepens the relationship, and because of that, it gives us a surplus of joy and happiness that we can dip into when the times are challenging. And the challenging times for us, I mean, I can go into it if you want, but it's mostly been around health issues, hers or mine. She's fine now. We're okay. But she's had some real serious health challenges over the years. And we had such a surplus of good feeling between us and love between us and good times between us that it really
Mm.
helped us navigate the rough times, the rocky
I,
roads.
I love this idea of banking the good times. Having that's a beautiful concept. You know, a lot of the time we're running on empty. So I do think that's it's interesting. You know, starting from a place of calm, like you said, you had naturally had a very good connection, and of course, not every couple is so lucky. And like you, I do help people before and after MDMA journeys in
Okay, wait.
therapy.
I'm going to stop you for a moment because you keep using the L word and I don't buy
L
it.
word. What's the L word?
Lucky.
Oh,
Lucky.
okay, okay. I thought you
It,
meant love. I was like, wait a
no,
minute.
no, that's a good L word. But
Okay.
lucky is, I don't like that word. This has to do, just, I don't want to impose my belief system on you, but I'll just tell you what it is.
Yeah.
Because lucky leaves us victims of chance,
Mm-hmm.
good luck,
Mm-hmm.
bad luck,
Mm.
that we have no control over. I feel like I feel blessed, and I don't care how you define the divine or the greater good in the universe or whatever you want to call it, but I believe that there is such a thing. I don't think it's necessarily a male god, or I don't know exactly the nature of this divinity that runs the world and rules the universe with love. But I know just from personal experience, it's there, and I feel that I've been blessed many times. So that's how I feel about Shelley.
I appreciate the word blessed over lucky. It is certainly juicier and doesn't have judgment. And are we then assuming that these blessings are here for everybody? It just takes a little, what, work, timing?
It takes work.
Yeah.
There's an old Christian phrase from the early days of this country about God helps those who helps themselves. And again, I don't want to impose any particular definition of what God is, but no, you have to do the homework.
Some
You have
people
to do
say
the
you
work.
make your own luck.
Well, well, that could be another way of. That's a different belief system, and I don't need to argue that, but
No, I understand what you were doing. There was a shadow around that word that took away
yeah,
responsibility and also potentially diminished the spiritual side of it.
right, right.
So for people who haven't found their this kind of blessing yet, because there are blessings everywhere, I do believe, even in adversity and
Yeah.
yeah, different kinds of learning. So for people in relationships that are rocky,
hmm
what's your thought on MDMA as a tool?
Well, this was the first use of MDMA. When Sasha Shulgin rediscovered it, it had been on the shelf since 1912, but when he rediscovered it in about 1974 or 75 out in California in his lab, he started making these pills and giving it to local therapists. And the therapists took it themselves. And one of a famous therapist known as the Secret Chief, he was going to enter retirement because he was, I think, in his 70s at the time. He said, okay, Sasha, I'm not going to retire. I'm going to go back into practice and start giving this to my couples because I see this would be good for my couples. So he would give it to his couples and say, take these are two pills from a lab here in California. Take it. We call this drug empathy. Take it and go home and come back and let me know what happened. And those were the first uses of MDMA. It was for couples therapy. And there are a lot of underground therapists in this country now, probably a few thousand, who use it with their patients and couples. And many of them claim they could do a year's worth of couples counseling in a day with the right preparation before and the right integration after, which is very important. We can go into that if you like. And it can absolutely heal a relationship. Um, and though it's not guaranteed, it doesn't happen all the time. And sometimes the truth gets known, and that the truth is sometimes people have to split up, which happens when they go into normal couples counseling sometimes. It can't or shouldn't be saved. But very often it can and does get saved, and it's like a reset for couples.
Yes, I can see the reset, and have observed there's a kind of truth serum effect. I think one of the couples therapy sessions on MDMA that I observed was really interesting to me, and I this was a time when I, like you, I'd had an early experience with it, then I developed a bias against it, and then I came back to it as a therapeutic tool. The
Hmm.
first couples therapy session I observed, I was shocked by the sort of sobriety of the session.
Yes,
It felt like the MDMA was acting as a sort of torch on the actual truth of what was really going on. It's the kind of thing that might just expose that a couple doesn't love each other anymore, that it's gone. Or, it can be the stark reality. It's not all necessarily lovey-dovey. But again, that's sort of somewhat about the framing and the sobriety of having it as a session rather than having it kind of at a club or some
that's right.
more fanciful environment.
That's
So,
right. Yeah, it's
yes.
it's a very unusual substance. It's not, first of all, as I'm sure you know, but as many of your listeners may know as well, it's not a hallucinogen. It's the most user-friendly of all the psychedelics. You feel like you're in control, and you are in control. You're not hallucinating. You see what's right there in front of you. Your hearing isn't distorted. Your vision isn't distorted. It's most closely related to amphetamine chemically, though it's not the same as Adderall, but it's closer related to that than like acid or mushrooms. And your body gets flooded with your own serotonin, and which is a feel good hormone, and oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, and dopamine. And so what the result is that when you're with your partner, anything that had been lurking in your heart, you feel like you want to now say, and and not just you want to say it all, like you say, truth serum. You're in control. You don't have to, but you feel like you want to.
You want to.
And on the other end, you're more receptive, more than you ordinarily would be, to what your partner is saying. Where in the past they might have said the same thing the day before, but you were defensive or deflecting or denying or trying to persuade them that they're wrong and all this nonsense that keeps couples stuck. But now you're suddenly hearing them as if, because it's empathetic, you're attuned to them. You feel what they feel, and you realize, oh my God, I've been hurting my spouse, my partner, and I think I'm right about what I'm saying, and but the way I'm saying it seems to be really hurtful, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. It's like hurting myself. So and so that's where the breakthrough tends to happen. That type of receptivity.
Empathy and communication,
Yes.
attunement.
Yes.
Yes. And so, I mean, how many relationships would you, it's probably an impossible question, but would you say you've seen helped by MDMA?
Well, I've seen, because I get people before they go in and after they come out, and also hear from other therapists about their work, and also hear from members of my own local psychedelic community here in New York, of which,
Yeah.
there's lot of psychonauts here who use MDMA, and so they're always giving me trip reports, or roll reports in the case of MDMA. We call it rolling. And so over the years, hundreds of relationships that have been helped or transformed by MDMA. But every now and then there is a story of like, yep, we realized this is the wrong person. We're with we need to split up, and that can happen.
The thing I've had some difficulty with personally, and I've also observed it in other people, is when the relationship is not stable, and this could be from, a random hookup at a club or kind of early stages relationship, is that it's possible in entering the MDMA realm to go into the heavenly realm and the realm of potential. I guess this is tantra on crack kind of realm, where this is my person, this is bliss, this is
Yeah.
harmony,
Uh-huh.
this is the shit, this is it.
Yeah.
And then and then the other side is confusing. It's funny, I ended up talking
Yes.
to this guy at a random disco the other day, photographer, and he starts telling me how he took MDMA with his great friend and they sort of fell in love on the MDMA, and now she's being weird with him because she doesn't think he's ready for a relationship, and it's all just like, it's like, oh no. And I
Yes.
could feel his heart, and I've been there, it's tough.
Well, in California in the 70s, when MDMA started getting out into the wild there and people started using it all over the place, there was a bumper sticker that people had in their cars. It says, "Don't get married within 2 weeks of rolling," within 2 weeks of using MDMA. Uh, it's
Yeah.
also known as Molly, right?
Yeah.
Um, so just as in the bar culture, there's something known as beer goggles, where you have one too many beers and the person sitting there in the next bar stool looks so much better than they actually look. And well, I like to refer to Molly goggles.
Mm.
You're rolling with somebody and you're making these deep connection. If somebody you met 20 minutes before, and you're making
Yeah.
this deep connection, and you think you're in love,
Yeah.
and you're really just high. And it could be a great experience just for what it is. It could be a great connection, but it doesn't necessarily speak to compatibility in the long term.
Yeah, and it would be beautiful to have a framework around that. Like,
Mm.
let's take MDMA. We're not going to have sex, but let's just enjoy touching each other's faces if we want to. Uh,
And you'll want to.
I mean, for me that's the jam. That's the jam on MDMA, is the face touching. Like, I'm just like, this is everything.
Well, wait, let me
But
say something there
yeah,
because
yeah,
I would, if somebody asked me, I just met this person. I think it can be serious. I really see a potential there. I want to do MDMA with them. When should I do it? And I say, wait 6 months,
yeah.
at least for the first time.
I think I have never done that. Okay, good,
Okay.
good,
Yeah.
good, good. Yeah, no, I think that's good advice. 6 months, no, and I would say that the same, honestly, the same for any psychedelics, because mushrooms
Mm.
different, but they really accelerate the sexual chemistry.
Yes. And
Really
especially
accelerate.
LSD.
Right. I mean, I don't have so much experience with that, but yes, I've
Mhm.
heard LSD and the combination of LSD and MDMA, which I think is a little dangerous, isn't it? I know people love it, but I think it's,
It's called candy flipping, and
yeah.
it's a very potent combination. You don't want to do it in a club. You want to do it at home when you have control of your environment, and take moderate doses of each because they potentiate each other. So it's like if you ever take two candle flames and put them together, you'll get a flame that is much brighter than either of the other either of the candles. That's what happens. So be careful with it. It can be an ecstatic experience, but you don't do that the first, second, or third time that you're doing a psychedelic in your life. That's really more advanced.
That's solid advice. Thank you. So going back into your relationship, your
Mhm.
wonderful relationship, um, I really enjoyed hearing about your adventures, not just with MDMA, but into festival culture and all
Uh-huh.
sorts of things. There was a section in your book about going into an orgy tent. I don't know if it was a burning. I mean, it was so fun. I was, by the way, bravo. I've always been too scared, so that's awesome.
It was quite an
Oh,
experience,
oh my
absolutely.
God. Wait, were you high
I
when you went
felt
in the
like,
orgy tent or not?
oh yes, oh yes, and like, oh my God, Shelley, we're not in Kansas anymore because like the music was loud and the lights were bright and everyone was around on these mattresses and I won't tell you. I mean, you'll see. That's how
I
the book
mean, well, you're
begins.
going to say you had to be there, but I mean, oh my God. So wait a second. So, but were you in your 70s in the orgy tent?
It was, let's see, that was about 8 years ago. So we're up mid and upper 60s.
Okay, okay. Still super, super young. But
Oh yeah,
you were
we were
actually,
older than anybody there, that's for sure. Over twice the age of anybody there.
Which
And
makes it at least twice as brave, by the way, as well. So
well, maybe
amazing,
for that
amazing.
reason. It was in the middle of a festival called
Mhm.
PEX, the Philadelphia Experience, that used to be in Maryland every year. And so we knew we would at the festival for a day already, and we knew how well we were accepted there, even though we were older. They really respected us as elders, so that we felt welcome. So we didn't get scared about going into that tent about as far as our age difference was concerned. But it was a unique experience, put it that way.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. Um, you touch on aging in your book and MDMA, and I really love the exploration of it. In fact, there was something I flagged. I'll see if I can quickly find it. Here we go. Okay, so on MDMA and aging, you said, heeding its message, I can reintroduce novelty, notes of wonder, and the exotic back into this wrinkled and graying container, along with a wee bit of mischief. It acts as a kind of spiritual aphrodisiac. It points me to buried treasure and latent pleasures in forgotten membranes, and offers a jailbreak for sense memories long imprisoned in locked cells. Ultimately, it supports my longing to hook up with the universe. MDMA sets my chemical compass towards God. I love
A
that.
chemical compass. Yes. Uh-huh. Yes. Wow. I'm a good writer sometimes.
Right? Isn't that nice to know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was inspired by that, and also just inspired by you talking about aging and sort of self-bias towards aging, and how easy it is
Mm.
to kind of really be blameful towards ourselves just for the fact of aging. It's such a
Yes.
shame, and
Yes.
like something we shouldn't be allowing to happen.
It's a shame that we allow ourselves to be ashamed of
I mean,
aging and try to hide it by trying to uh, nip and tuck and bleach or dye our way out of
I'm
it,
sorry,
or
Charlie. We're going to have to do one
um,
more thing on this.
uh,
It's
and as if it's something to be embarrassed by, as if it's some kind of failure. When in
oh
reality, it's
gosh.
quite the opposite. It's a success, and um, so you froze there. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, I'm sorry. We got yeah, I can hear you now. If we can go from it's a shame that we have to be ashamed of aging.
Yes, it and we are, we're conditioned to basically to hate ourselves after the age of 30 or 40 or 50, or hate our bodies. Women have this much worse than men do in this culture, but both genders have this internalized ageism is what it is. The ageism in the society that
All I think
we
all
live in.
genders have it now.
Yeah, 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 we do.
Yeah.
It's a youth-centric, youth-worshiping culture, and it's the one ageism, it's the one ism that will bite you in the butt if you live long enough. It can be, it can be sexism, and if you're a man, you might not get hurt by it if you practice it. If you're racist and you practice racism, you might not get hurt by it if you're white. But if you practice ageism, one day it's going to bite you in the butt because if you live that long, it's going to come back and haunt you from within because
It's
you're going to
right.
find it. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a great equalizer.
yes,
It's a great
exactly.
equalizer. So MDMA is a reminder of
MDMA
spirit,
makes me
freedom.
feel ageless. I feel like I'm in a body that weighs half of that I do, and is emotionally lighter than I normally am. And I can dance on MDMA. I feel like MDMA is the puppeteer, and I'm not dancing. I'm being danced.
Mm.
I just jump around, and It makes me feel light on my feet and light in my mind, and ageless, and really keeps me in touch with there's a spirit that lives in me that's always been in there.
And how does
And
it play into aging in a couple, as a couple?
well, gee, when Shelley and I are able to challenge the myths that, at our age we're supposed to, quote, act our age, which is basically
Don't fuck.
a societal admonition that says don't act in any way that makes other people younger than you feel uncomfortable because you're jumping out of the category and pigeonhole that we want you to be in. Acting your age is BS. So once we realized that, we could act the way we wanted to. And that means we could do drugs if we wanted to. We could continue to have sex, and we have sex once a week. Every Saturday night we have our date night, and
Beautiful.
it's fabulous. And we're with friends a lot. We hang out with people in the community a lot. We have places that we can go to, and so uh, uh, I mean, I look in the mirror, I get shocked. I like, wow, gee, I do look my age, but I don't feel my age. And that's more important.
It sure is. It has
Yeah,
to be. It would be a sad
yeah,
thing if it was the other way around. So, you
that's
know,
right.
we have to fight that in Los Angeles. Double down on the spirit because the externals are pretty intense. Yeah, pretty
Yes,
intense.
they are in LA
Yeah,
and New York,
yeah,
especially.
yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
skin
It's
deep culture.
it's skin deep culture, exactly. Yeah, and I think in these festivals and these kind of playgrounds, it's spirit deep culture that you're getting into, really, and that's why all
Yes,
ages
and
are more welcome.
yeah, these festivals, at least the good ones that are really have the rave ethic of plur, peace, love, unity, respect. Um, when we go to a festival, we are people invariably. You know where we're going New Year's Eve? We're
Where?
going New Year's Eve in Madison Square Garden to see a Fish concert. I
That
don't know if
sounds
you're familiar
fun.
with Fish.
I am not very though, but
Okay,
vaguely.
well, we love
Yeah,
them, and we're
amazing.
certainly. I mean, there are other boomers there, but mostly it's people from 18 to 38 who are there. But they welcome us with open arms. And, hey, how many times have you been here? And they welcome us, and they want to know
Yeah,
what number of Fish concert it is, and we say it's our fourth, and they say, "Oh, well, it's my 104th," But they're very friendly, and they like that we want to party with them. So it's an
yeah.
embracing culture. The rave culture, EDM culture, is usually very embracing of people of all kinds of looks and styles and races and genders and sexuality and age.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. It's such an important piece for me. I returned to rave culture. I was in it in the early days, in my early 20s, very, very into it, stepped completely out and then returned recently and was absolutely blown away because I was coming back to it with the eyes of a mother, a therapist, a human, a psychonaut, someone who's been studying humans from different angles and psychology and spirituality. And I was like, hot damn, these people have been co evolving in community without
Yes.
therapists on the fucking dance floor. Like, this is
Yeah.
nuts.
I know. I know. And there are groups now, all kinds of groups. There's Daybreaker that comes to New York, which is
Mm.
actually at dawn in the park with it's like silent disco where they have headphones and
I love
um, I,
Daybreaker. So good.
ugh, and there's ecstatic dance here in New York and maybe elsewhere too, and
Yeah.
all these dance communities around. It's fabulous.
It's fabulous. I know it's really a game changer. It's a groundswell, I would say, and I think
Yes, and it makes us
yeah.
realize that. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, no, no. You
It,
go,
it,
go.
it, it makes us realize that, yeah, we're here to trudge through our day and our week and work and be responsible and take care of the people we need to take care of, but we're also here to have a damn good time and celebrate being
Absolutely.
alive because we're not always going to be, and make the most of
Amen.
it. Yeah,
And,
yeah.
to me, and this is what my most of my work is about actually, is making these connections. It's not just a good time, it's profoundly healing to get together
Yes,
and commune with other humans,
you bet.
and
You bet.
accept to be in acceptance of one
Yes.
another.
Yeah. Play,
So
fun, and joy can be transformational experiences, and to be in community, there's just, especially these days with such alienation and the epidemic of loneliness that we have in this culture, to be with others is really the antidote, and it's especially healing.
I agree. To be with others is the antidote. I'm going to invite you into two final questions. The first is, what is your wish for your work?
My work. Wow. My work is really, I have my work and then I have my vision. My wish for my work is that one day I can work underground but not have it be underground, but be overground and tell the world, doing something I believe in, so without fear of losing my license or my freedom. And one day these substances are going to be legal because we're headed in that direction. So I look forward to that day, um, and a day where I can myself sit for couples and do this phenomenal work. And I'm also working on a second book about for couples who want to use MDMA. But my vision is actually one that I'm going into other territory now. We don't have to, but you asked, so here we are. We just had a big event in this country last month. We're going to have a new person in office in January. And regardless of how you voted or if you voted, regardless of how you feel about the change, there's no question and no debate that we're going to have change. And it's big change. And some will embrace it and love the change, and some are scared out of their wits and dreading every moment of it. And I'm trying to encourage them to do psychedelics responsibly and to stop watching the news and reading the paper and watching YouTube and doing social media with the frame in their minds of I'm a progressive, I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. Instead, do it with the frame in your mind of I am a psychonaut. I'm one who does psychedelic drugs, and I have tasted heaven. I know what it can be like because I have, people in my community have. We run group experiences here in New York, which we call pulling down heaven. We've tasted this, what I call the psychedelic vision of a world where peace and love is actually possible. Generosity, gratitude is actually possible. Tolerance of all peoples actually possible in a world of equality and justice as well. We all have this in our hearts. And we need to stop looking at this through across a partisan divide and demonize the other side. So my vision is this new world that I believe is possible, and I think a lot of people know in their hearts that it is.
Beautiful. I'm totally on board the pulling down heaven program. Actually, starting something called Heart Party. We've only had one of these events so far, but the ideas and the dreams are the same. It's about realizing that we're the medicine really together.
Yes.
There's a whole healing circus around, and there's a million psychedelics, but at the end of the day, we're the medicine. And
That's right.
okay, so talking of heart party, if your heart had a party, Charlie, what would it be like, feel like, look like, sound like?
Oh my God. Are you asking me to like picture heaven? We've had these parties. We've done these group events for 20 years now in New York, anywhere from 70 to 75 people out in the park. And to other people in the park, it looked like a bunch of people having a picnic, really. But we were in
Yeah.
heaven together. We looked like anybody else having a picnic, except for the occasional cuddle puddle. Um, and so it was. These gatherings are just fabulous, and really give us a taste of the best way to spend a day, the best way to be alive, the best way to really commune with other people. People have made friends during these experiences that have lasted, friendships that have lasted, and many of them are now best friends. So we a couple of times a year we have these, and that's my heart party, and I teach other people how to do that because we've developed our own protocols for that. But this is how to spread the wealth, how to spread the joy, spread the
Spread the
love.
love.
That's
Spread the love. Yes, yes, yes.
that's
That's
what
so
we're here to do.
beautiful. That's what we're here to do. Well, I would love you to come to one of my heart parties, and I'd love to come to one of your heart parties. So,
Okay,
if we
sounds
can
good to me.
cross the divide of the United States of America on an aeroplane,
Yes.
one of us. I know it sounds so beautiful, and I have so much respect for the work that you're doing. Coming out as a therapist is not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of bias in the community. This is contentious stuff. There's a lot of judgment. I understand it. These chemicals are, as you mentioned at the beginning, very serious. They're very sacred. It's a big deal. We're so blessed to be able to have access to them, and they're not to be taken lightly. And wow, what profound change we can access if we use them responsibly. And
Yes.
you're really a living example of that, of somebody who's, I think, seems to really know how to have fun and let loose. And that's something so important about that. And, be a responsible adult and help other people along the way in a multidimensional way, as a friend, as a mentor, as a husband, as a teacher, as a therapist, and as a writer. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. And may I just mention that if anyone wants to get in touch with me, they can write me at Charles
Yes.
at higherpurpose.community, my new website. And thank you so much, Jane, for having me. And it's been thrilling to talk to you. You get it. You really get it. And I really appreciate and I'm grateful to you
Yeah.
about
Thank
the
you.
work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Really,
Thank you. Likewise.
keep
Likewise.
keep it going. Keep it going.
Thank you. I'm